First thing on the agenda is courtesy of Florida visitors. Anybody, visitors that choose to speak? Okay. Approval of the minutes. We have minutes from the workshop on August the 13th. I'm sorry, August the 16th, the regular meeting on August the 28th, and the regular meeting on September the 25th. Any comments, concerns, changes from Andrea? There.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of quick comments. These are more just corrections, I guess, on the minutes for August 28th. Under item A, last paragraph, it talks about paver areas around first surrounding stormwater drains. I think that should be First Street, if I'm not mistaken. Just a small little thing. And then in the same meeting minutes, when you go to item B under old business, again, it's just a spelling thing. It says, and I believe that first sentence is supposed to be staff informed. We're missing one F there, but that's all I have.
Anybody else with changes, comments, concerns? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to approve those 3 sets of minutes with those changes.
I'll make a motion to approve approval of minutes for August 16th, 2023 workshop, August 28th, 2023 workshop, and September 25th, 2023 meeting minutes as amended for hearing.
There's a motion, and is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and duly seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? By action, we approve that motion. Okay, old business. Nobody? New business.
All right, we will call our CFO, Ms. Gossett.
Ashley, welcome.
Good afternoon, Ashley Gossett, CFO. I'm here to present 2 items to the board today, resolution number 2023-05 and resolution number 2023-06. These are the resolutions to appropriate the year-end fund balance in the redevelopment trust funds. This is required by state statute for us to take a snapshot at the end of every fiscal year and to do with the fund balance either 1, return the remaining dollars to the taxing authorities, 2, pay down debt, or 3, set aside money to pay down debt, or 4, appropriate it to projects within the district's redevelopment plan. So we are proposing to do option 4, which is to appropriate the dollars to the redevelopment district plans. 2023-05 is for the downtown district. And if you look at Exhibit A, the first page is what we anticipate being the fund balance at the end of the year, which is, as of the time this was prepared, we were anticipating a fund balance of $32,751,958. And then the second page of the exhibit details which projects those are appropriated to, with the projects 4 and 5 construction being the largest appropriation of $29.6 million, and that's based on the award to the contractor for the work. And if you look to the bottom of that second page of the exhibit, the board had previously asked me to identify what had been already awarded work or appropriated work, and in the case of the downtown district, all of the dollars have been previously awarded through either individual appropriations or the 2023 budget. I will note that this is kind of the first year that we saw pretty much all of the fund balance being soaked up by previously awarded work in the district, because we're seeing considerable price escalations, and the board and staff are kind of moving at an accelerated pace with some of these projects, so we have a lot of things going on right now. So I'll just note that for future consideration, the board might need to be considering kind of the priorities of some other projects as we look to the end of the 24 and into the 25 fiscal year plan. Are there any questions about the downtown appropriation?
Any questions, Ashley? Gary?
2023 budget and the already awarded projects were all that were available for those monies, so we could not look forward to the 2024 projects. And some of the projects were in 23 were rebudgeted to 24, but essentially going forward, we're relying on receipts from 24 and future years to pay for those projects and that additional work. And so that's why you don't see that column in the downtown appropriation. Mhm.
Any other questions, comments, concerns for resolution 2023-05? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve 2023-05 as presented.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Moved and duly seconded. Any further discussions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Ms. Christie Elflin? Mr. Gary Payton?
Yes.
Mr. Art Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Francis Pawlowski?
Yes.
Mr. David McCall?
Yes.
Are you actually, you've approved the resolution as presented? Madam Clerk.
Yes. And the next item will also go to our CFO, Ms. Gossett.
So resolution 2023-06 is for the South End Redevelopment District. And kind of what I told you before about the options for what to do with the year-end fund balance are the same. I would like to call your attention to a mistake at the top of the second page of the exhibit. It says fiscal 22, but that's intended to be fiscal 23, so I apologize for that. And in the South End District, we are projecting the fund balance to be at year-end $12,553,107. And this is as of October 19th when the report was prepared. So on the second page of the exhibit, the matrix roll forward and highlighted in green are the projects that are accompanying the fiscal 24 projects or perhaps into fiscal 2025. And so you see the separation between what the agency's already awarded or approved through budget is $8,015,625. And what's being appropriated for the 24 budget and future CIP projects is $4,537,482. And I'm available to answer any questions you might have about the South End.
Okay, Francis.
Hello.
District.
I just have two questions about the matrix. I keep forgetting each of these. When we were discussing the South Park renovations and what have you, I can't recall, and I've tried to look, I can't find the time frame that was discussed for the beautification of that construction. Was that set for 2025 and not 2024? Because in the line item, South Beach Park medians and landscaping, it's 0.
Are you referring to Hanson Park? Or
No, this is, it just,
You're talking
the
about-
light on here says, it's underneath, corridors, and it says South Beach Park medians and landscaping. So South Beach Park means the park, and we have all that construction, or all that stuff planned for the sidewalks and all that, so it says 0. So I had a question, but that's not 2024, is that supposed to be 2025?
So if I could ask the 0 bounds, is that it says in that column, project complete, $100,000?
No, it's the ad reserved for, it's, you can talk about this, so we do have 175, but there's no extra reserved for it? That's what my question was.
Sure, so the South Beach Park medians and landscaping, the year-end appropriation from 2022 was $175,000. We spent $9,991 this year, so we're gonna roll forward $165,009 into 24 to complete that work.
And that's still in line with but there's no contingent amount or anything else other than that reserved for that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if we go over that budget, then we have to get an amendment for that.
It depends on what the differential is. There might be an opportunity to do an internal budget adjustment for a project that might not have used all of its contingency. So I don't want to say definitively now, but I guess as we approach that, we can do an analysis and bring something back to Heather and Taylor for consideration and presentation to the board.
Okay, and then the only other question I had to do with the camera system in the South Beach area. I thought they presented us they provided us an idea of what did we not include that in our budget for this year coming up?
So the camera system for the 300 and 1,200, that was for the capital purchase. And then the 3 years of maintenance that the board approved is gonna be rolled into your annual operating budget. And so we caught the 24 amount was included in the budget that the board
So it's already in
approved.
operation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to be sure, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anybody else here?
Actually, just a general question. Has the CRA ever been audited by the state?
I believe we were audited probably between 15 and 20 years ago. I don't know if anyone has, but I do, in the historical files, there is an audit report that came out many years ago. So it's been a very long time since we were audited. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Because the Auditor General does audit multiple CRAs every year. But we have been fortunate enough in the last
Not to.
15 years not to have been audited.
And that's why I was just curious.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that we had been, but I was just trying to understand whether or not there was anything that we were basing some of our decisions on based on what had happened in the previous audit, but we really don't have any backup or any information on that.
Well, the appropriations being prepared in accordance with the state statute, which has kind of progressively become a little bit more detailed over the years. So that's what we use as kind of our guiding principle for how we prepare these documents.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we're audited every year, it's just not all by the Auditor General, but we do have to do an audit every year that we then have to file with the state.
Yes, and thank you for
Well, I understand that.
that.
What I'm really referring to is, the state coming and doing a specific audit of, like you said, they do it on quite a number of CRAs. And I was just curious if we had ever had to go down that road with the state.
We have been down that road, and it's been many years ago.
Thank you.
David?
You mentioned that this is the first time in a while we spent up all the money because of increased prices and such. Well, we just kind of completed the first summer of that park, and it was way more successful, and I think tons of people are there. Are we planning for advanced maintenance money, or because it's getting so much more use than do we have that factored in? I don't know our maintenance schedule, what we were assuming it was, but I'm feeling like we're gonna have to advance that up.
So Parks and Rec prepared the operating budget for 2024, kind of take into consideration the needs, and so maybe Taylor and Heather can speak to it in more detail, because I don't think we have anyone from Parks here. But I think between Jason and Trevor, they've tried to be kind of meticulous in defining what the needs are.
And I will say Trevor has got some elevated expertise, if you will, on like the day-to-day maintenance as far as if something comes loose or if there's a piece of the turf that's messed up. So he's out there, or someone from that crew is in that park every day. When it closes, he's got kind of a checklist they go through, so they're definitely on top of that maintenance.
On that same topic, do we have money set aside in savings for 10 years from now when those improvements are going to be more than just maintenance, but significant maintenance or even replacement?
Yeah, we don't really look the 10 years out. Usually we kind of operate within that 5 to 7 year CIP timeline, but as far as having any major capital investments in that park, there aren't really any slated for right now. Most of it's operational and maintenance. Like this year we've got the splash pad repairs. Ashley, is there anything you want to add to that?
So we do kind of an estimate, look forward, we try and do some long-term planning in all of our city funds, but within the redevelopment districts, the long-term plan, we try to get it as aligned as possible to their redevelopment plan. And I know the plan has been amended to allow us to maintain, does it say rebuild? Maintenance, yeah, to maintain what we build, and so rebuilding it, I would have to get kind of some feedback from somebody more legally minded, if that would be included within the plan, so.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, I will entertain a motion. Francis?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution
Haytel?
Yes.
Mr. Art Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Frances Pawlowski?
Yes.
Mr. David McCraw?
Yes.
By your action, you've approved the resolution.
All right.
Okay, item number C under new business.
You guys ready for this one? This is a long one. No, all right, so the art committee has deliberated now for a couple of their meetings and really took their time and did their due diligence on evaluating candidates. We received over 80 qualified applicants. That wasn't just applicants, over 80 of them were qualified. They narrowed that down to about 30, and then out of that 30, they did 7 interviews. Then they selected 3 out of those final 7 that they felt really strongly about and they wanted to get a little more information from. And so from that entire process, they are seeking approval of the recommendation of Mr. Xavier Cortada. He is with the University of Miami. He is a professor of art. He is also a legal professor, and he also sits on the board of pediatrics. So he is quite the impressive guy. He is fascinating to talk to. What he is presenting is some type of column structure that's going to represent the various sea life elements. And I think something that's really cool, if you kind of watching these photos, you know, he's even taken into account the way the sun hits the site and where the angles of the shadows and things will be. Again, this was all in your packet, so I'm not going to read word for word what he's done, but again, he has done a ton of public art across the country. And this is just some of his work. Like I said, he's pretty impressive. So, did any of you have a chance to watch this video? Okay. If you haven't, I encourage you to. I'm going to kind of go through it. If we decide at the end of this you have to see the video, I will come back to it. But basically what it is it just talks a little bit about how he does the things that he does. It shows his studio, how his process is. And I want to note one unique thing he said in all of the interview rounds and in part of this submission is that he really enjoys sourcing local. So he may do certain things out of his studio, but the bulk of the work he likes to come to the community and to source locally. And so again, here's the site as it exists. He's proposing some form of these columns. And I say some form because once we get to the end, you'll kind of see what I mean. And so again, they are glass mosaic. We did talk to him a little bit about the materials used. And you know, again, this is materials that he has used all over in plenty of beach communities before. So he's very used to working against the elements, against the populations, against wear and tear. He kind of understands that things have the potential to get damaged. People like it, people want to touch it, people want to climb on it. And if I go too quick and you want me to stop or slow down on something, just yell at me. And so this just kind of, again, goes through the breakdown of each of the different columns, how they tie together, but how they're all unique in their own way, the different color mosaics, the different patterns. I think when you watch that video, one really unique thing you notice is the texture of these pieces is they're not just pretty to look at, they've got a really, really unique texture to them, which I think is really cool. And when you look at his artwork in the real world, you can, well, here you go, you can really see that texture, and it's, it just gives it some really unique dimension. A lot of columns. I'm sorry. Okay, so, again, he kind of goes into capturing the essence of Jacksonville Beach. One of the things that he has said over and over again in all of the meetings on his interview is that until, you know, once this is finalized, before he gets to that point, he wants to come up here, he wants to meet with the art committee, he wants to meet with the CRA, he wants to meet with staff, and he really wants to customize this piece to the community as best as possible. He talks a little bit about the symbolism, bringing in environmental awareness, and again, just kind of what inspired him to submit this for this piece of art. And then again, he provided a really good breakdown of each of the columns that, you know, within the budget that was previously set for the fiscal year, and then he goes into, I thought this was really helpful, the design phase and sort of how we will get to that end result. I think that really helps non-artists like myself kind of visualize this process. And so he is, you know, determining about 7 months to completion, which is pretty quick. So the reason I kept talking about
if this is the concept, if he comes up here and he has all these meetings and he really feels inspired or feels the agency feels something different, council, the art committee, the public, whoever it is, he provided all of these other media options. And so really what this art committee voted on were not only the proposal, because they love this proposal, but also his portfolio as a whole and what he is able to do, just kind of across the board with all different, methods of art. And then again, these are just kind of showing various pieces that he has done.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
You mentioned touch, feel, see. Is this something that people will be able to like get up close to and actually
Yeah.
touch it, feel it, interact, take a picture with it?
Totally, and I think that was always the intention, but I think it was one of those things, even if it hadn't been our intention, it would have to be just because the site is so accessible. So yes.
Francis?
I had two questions. One, the accessible questions that just had. Originally, when I read this and I saw water, I thought it was going to be water
Yeah.
columns.
Okay.
It's not
No,
water.
it's not literal.
We're not like inserting plumbing below it so that the water can trickle down.
No.
Right? Okay.
That would turn into a shower.
I just wanted to make sure.
No,
Okay.
I understand.
And then two, I wanted to confirm, because there was such a vast variety of photos in this packet, that the art committee did settle on sea creatures,
Yes.
specifically these creatures.
Yeah, so the art committee, that's a great question.
I just want to make sure it's going to be starfish.
So the art committee definitely settled, and this is what they voted to bring to you guys to move forward. The reason he provided all the different alternate, media options and wants to come up here to work, again, with the CRA council and the art committee is, he said he understands as an artist, he can make a recommendation to a call, but that the community knows best. And if we really felt strongly that there could be a better animal or picture of something on there, that he was open to working with us to reach that, because this is such a big and important piece.
So the only reason I asked that question is I know that these creatures are all over the ocean, and I did them are here, and I know we did our dig survey on who wants what and what have you, but we really don't have a lot of these creatures in this specific area.
Okay?
Like, we don't have starfish crawling in our waters like we do in South Florida. And I feel if we're going to try to represent, that's the only comment I have.
Okay.
Like, if we are going to try to represent this area, yes, Miami's Florida, but we're not Miami, we're
Sure.
basically South Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my only, if this isn't the direction that conversation's had.
Okay.
I would request.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Did you talk about at all how they plan on anchoring this thing?
Yes, I will probably get it incorrect. So he's gonna have to come in and do concrete footing with rebar that will essentially go up through the middle of the columns that are going to anchor them down into concrete bases. And then around that, there will be pavers, so it's at least aesthetically pretty, but underneath each of those are gonna be concrete with the rebar and holding them in. The work he has done, I'm not even gonna attempt to get the term correct, but whatever it is that he used can withstand the hurricane force winds, the elements. It can withstand so many pounds of pressure applying against it. And so he was very aware of all of that. I don't have the specific terminology, but I'm happy to ask him and share that with you guys.
Well, I mean, I looked at the other things that he had, and he didn't have anything that was this independent.
Sure.
I mean, the other things had either it was attached by a roof or
Sure.
attached by a building or something else. But just as long as you thought of that through, because
Yeah.
that big 9-foot blue boy, as he called it.
Yeah, we don't need that getting bumped and coming down, yeah. So that was something that he obviously had to take into consideration, and I would like to note another reason I think the committee really felt strongly about this is because at some point in the future, whether that's in 2 years or 15 years, there will be development basically right behind this. And so that was another thing the committee really took into consideration, was not just planning this piece for now, but planning this piece for the future, that it will stand out against whatever comes in behind it.
Okay. Gary?
Taylor, I've got several questions, some of them just been answered, but it's my understanding that the starfish theme that we see on each of the pieces, that's not the ultimate design, that he's going to be coming up with different ones for each of the panels, or?
So I think well, I think that'll ultimately lie in when he comes up here and has these meetings, kind of where we land. They may all end up with the same design, just different colors and styles. They may all end up with a different creature. But again, I think that's going to be largely up to these various committees that are involved.
My biggest concern is just seeing starfish, and that's all that we're seeing on any of the panels. That's not, I don't know, I think we could do much more than that.
Mhm.
And I like the idea of the textures.
Sure.
He does do things that are flat pieces based on the video that I saw. The textured pieces I think would be much nicer.
Sure.
And create a little bit more interaction with folks. In reference to the structural capability of these, is that ultimately in his price also?
Yep.
When we say it's, what was it, $150,000 to do this piece, it includes that also, that
Yes.
he'll hire the structural engineers.
Oh, yeah.
And, I guess
This is
he's
an
hiring a
all-inclusive.
contractor to
Mhm.
ultimately, to build that. What about lighting?
We have to be careful here because the site is technically within our buffer zone of the beach. So we can only do so much. So there may be some very minimal lights to illuminate at night for essentially safety purposes. There is a street light over there. But as far as him lighting the site, the level of DEP permitting and things that would have to go along with that, he will not be lighting the site himself.
That's a challenge I can see. It'd just be something to think about. I mean, to have these panels, so to speak, not lit at night, I think we would lose something there, but I understand the challenge of the sea turtles too. So the question is, can we find a compromise somewhere in between that helps and
Sure.
works for everybody? But that was just one consideration. The same thing about seating and shade,
So there won't be shade. We never really called out for that. Seating, we did call out for once we kind of got to this design phase, almost a secondary phase of this project, kind of working with the artist to landscape, to complement whatever goes here around the perimeter, and then same with the seating. I think we will likely end up just installing those sharp tooth type benches that we're putting around the rest of the downtown, and we may put some of those there, or we may work with the artist and we determine that there's a better fit for that site that will still, complement what's in the rest of the downtown, but that will be something that the agency will kind of help work through as this design moves forward.
So on top of that, what's existing out there now is a little bit of a raised platform.
Mm-hmm.
He's just going to be building on top of that
Mhm.
platform. Are
Yep.
there modifications that we need to make to the platform itself?
He's responsible for all of it.
He's responsible for all of it.
We sort of set this up intentionally, the budget is healthy, it's a big one, and when we were talking with all of the artists, we let them know that this budget was all inclusive of all of those costs, because that was the most essentially black and white way to do it, where there was no weird kind of middle of the road, who covers what. So once the contract's executed, then it is up to the artist to, secure permits, process, contractors, engineers, and they have to take it from there.
That's right, but, if you've got all of that covered, that really kind of answers my question. Again, I have a little bit of a question about all the options at the end of this proposal, but I
Okay.
read that as just being some things that he will consider
Sure.
at the time he comes up here and has conversation, and then hopefully we ultimately mold that into a final design.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So glad Gary brought up those textured pieces. I really like them. My concern is those are the easiest things to chip, and then if we end up with a bunch of water columns that have all these chips all over them, what's the maintenance plan for that? Because that's not easy to replace.
Sure, so there will be a part of the contract, 5-year maintenance. I know with the girls we did one, with this it's gonna be a minimum of 5. He will then help us to, throughout that 5-year, kind of averaging how much it costs to maintain, and then help us work up a maintenance schedule, and then we would take over at the end of his termination with that part of the contract. But as far as those textured pieces, I had that same concern, and I spoke with him about it on the phone. These are in South Beach with that texture, and South Beach is pretty busy. He's got a couple, I believe, in Fort Lauderdale that have the same texture. And the way they're sealed, I'm not even gonna pretend to remember how they're sealed, but there's something that he seals them with that makes it a lot harder to damage.
My second comment is, was there, and I might have missed it in all the paper, but, is there any consideration to like painting the ground, or are we just leaving it the white tile that's there? Like, I feel like
I
there should be
think
an
those-
incorporation there.
Yeah, I think that can all be discussed with him, for sure. Absolutely.
That's it?
Chris,
I think back to the lighting question that Gary brought up, there's opportunities to potentially use this turtle safe lighting and lower the ground, and it could actually work with the ambience of underwater lighting, like bringing that into it could be a good character. Do you think that, are we gonna be doing a workshop with him, a joint workshop with the art committee?
Something like that, to be completely honest, we have not really quite figured that out. We wanted to, it was sort of a battle of how far do we get down the road with this artist before this is even approved, because, in theory, if you guys were to approve this, we still have to go through council as well, and so we didn't want to dive too deep into that, but yes, we do plan to have some type of workshop / open house where a lot of these questions, concerns, comments can be heard, and, you guys can have that interaction with him. Okay.
I was going to say, in his video, he talks about he's got a great love for starfish.
He does.
So, that's why you see all that stuff
Yeah.
there. That doesn't mean that we're stuck with any of that
Yes.
stuff. And he says he wants to come up and meet with the different groups and meet with the community.
Yeah.
The questions I had was, who was going to facilitate that? Was it going to be the art committee? Was it going to be our committee? Was it going to be city council? So that's one of the questions I'm sure that need to be answered.
Yeah, so as far as meeting with city committees and or council, we would facilitate that, and we would host it essentially just like a workshop. We are still talking through the details of him having his public forums. We don't feel like maybe that's not the best thing for us to host, that's probably something he should host, and we can help set him up, somewhere, and we're gonna kind of have to work through the details of that.
And as far as the lighting goes, if this agency and or the police department decides or safety issues,
Sure.
we can always light it. I mean, regardless of the rest of that stuff. Any other comments, questions, concerns? If you haven't seen the video, I suggest you watch it, because I was kind of on the fence, but his video was very impressive.
I agree.
He did a great job.
It's a really interesting, and he's very passionate about the work, you can tell.
Okay, well then I will entertain a motion. Francis?
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation by the Public Art Advisory Committee as presented.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Ms. Christy Elflin,
Yes.
Mr. Darren Cato,
Yes.
Mr. Art Graham,
Yes.
Ms. Frances Pawlowski,
Yes.
Mr. David McGraw.
Yes.
By your action, you have approved the art committee's recommendation.
Awesome.
Okay, new business, item D.
All right, so this is the first step in getting some things accomplished that we need to get accomplished on this board. The bylaws are attached. Again, these, I would like to note, and Heather and I were even a little bit kicking ourselves for this one, these have not been touched since the CRA was created. Granted, we had some much more pressing items to get to when we both came into these roles, but we are very happy to take this first stab at these. The reason that this is more of a minor update is because we are really trying to hit that December 18th mark for City Council. We have got these tentatively on the council agenda for November the 20th, because what that allows council to then do is fill the vacancies as well as appointing the first ever alternates all in one meeting. And so that kind of gives us a fresh start right out the gate in January. I do kind of want to draw your attention to a couple of pages where there's some changes. One is going to be that first page. We expanded the bylaws to clarify that there is a South End district in the original bylaws. That wasn't really spelled out explicitly. Yeah, exactly. So it didn't exist. So now that it exists, and it has existed for 30 years, it's now spelled out. In Article 3, Section 1, that is the section that has got 2 alternate members and that they would vote in place of regular members. This text is the same as the rest of our boards that have alternates. In Section 2, we just added again the terms of those alternates, and we did it just like the original CRA appointments were done, where one will roll off in 3, one will roll off in 4, and then they'll kind of follow the same CRA appointment schedule. We also did change The he, hims to gender neutral phrasing, because sometimes it's not a he. Again, that's just this page, which is kind of changing those. Section 3, place, we now have this city hall, and that had never been changed. So we reference meeting at the correct city hall address. And then that, really, again, this was not anything crazy in depth. It was pretty straightforward. We just kind of fixed and tweaked a few things, but we are happy to answer any questions anyone has. Like I said, our goal was to get this to council in November, so that way we can get the board vacancies filled as well as alternates.
There's a couple of gender neutral things that you missed,
Uh-oh.
like when you talked about me dying.
Uh-oh.
It says under vice chairman,
Okay, let's see.
and it hit with this dash.
Oops. Good catch. There it is. I got it.
And there is a couple pages later,
Mhm.
Article 8, Section 2. You put they in there, but you didn't strike you.
Yep. Got it.
And then the next page, there's like 3 there. And that's the only ones I saw.
Okay. Thank you.
And they're about 2/3 of the way down.
Okay. Yep. Good catch.
Francis?
I just had, when I read these, because I had never seen them before, I had a question in regards to Article 5 officers. Am I to understand that we technically should have an executive director and secretary as well? And is that part of this, alternates, are we assigning, like what is
So,
that?
essentially, the planning director, the way we work and the way we're structured, acts as the executive director, and then basically I'm the secretary. So, and so I record all the minutes, I do the meeting notices, and I kind of do all the behind the scenes duties, and so we're covered under both of those.
So my question, a little bit mischievous question behind that question is, does this open the door for us to possibly have additional help?
No.
And have our own director and own,
Nope.
I'm trying to get you some more help, man.
There is a way to do it, this is not, unfortunately,
I
not
was like,
the way.
I thought I asked. All right.
Because everything has to go through city policy, procurement, et cetera, and so even if this said you can have 17 executive directors, and the city says, no, that's not within our policy, can't do it.
Fine, thank you.
I get the ask, I do.
Gary?
In reference, I just need to understand a little bit more how this is going to operate. When you have the alternates, will they participate in the discussions during the meetings, or how is that normally handled when we have alternates? Do they?
The other boards do allow it, they just don't vote. So they would also, and the reason for that is, like, let's say if we had 2 alternates here right now, right? And we're having a discussion and we're gonna carry it over, we're gonna table something to the November meeting, and then let's say David, last minute, is out sick. Well, at least at that point, you know, that alternate is up to speed on the discussion that took place, kind of what we've talked about, the process and procedure, so that they're ready and equipped to vote in the event that they need to vote. So they would only vote in the absence of a board member, but they would still participate in the
There
meetings.
will be alternate 1 and alternate 2. Alternate 1 would be the one who would
Yes.
fill the first slot.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. It's just like, what is it PC and BOA? Both are just like that. They have alternate 1 and alternate 2, and someone was absent a couple of meetings ago, alternate 1 filled in, they had been at the previous meeting, so they kind of knew what was coming, so.
A lot of it just comes out to the chairperson, whoever that is, because you can be there, but if he doesn't recognize them, they're just part of the furniture, and they won't vote unless they're in the slot.
Yeah, yep, they will never vote unless one of the 5 is gone.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand how we operate.
Sure.
In reference to quorum, then, and that's, defined later on in the document, I guess, I'm a little confused when I read it now, because the majority of the board shall
summer, 3 of you are gone, and then both the alternates step in theory, if just one person was gone, you could still not pull that alternate up, but once that alternate exists, it doesn't really make sense to not utilize that, to have a full 5-person vote taken if you have the ability to do so. So the quorum would still be 3 out of 5, but the way the city kind of has operated is if that alternate position exists and one person is absent, then that alternate would step in and fill that empty seat, regardless of.
But if a quorum would be 3 people.
Sure.
So it could be 1 board member plus 2 alternates.
Yeah.
That could literally
Yep.
go, okay, that's what I'm
Yep.
trying to
Yeah.
understand.
So no matter what, it's 3 out of 5. But we may have, 2 board members missing, and we're still gonna have a 5 out of 5 vote. Does that make sense? And I think I'm saying that correctly, but I know it gets a little confusing, but.
I have a question.
Mhm.
I just assumed if there was a vacancy, alternate one would step into the vacancy. What you just said made it seem like there's a decision to be made if that alternate fills that vacancy. Who makes
Yep.
that decision?
Council.
But council's not there if one
No,
person.
no, no, so, I'm sorry, if there's a vacancy at a regular meeting and you're not like coming off, then no, that person automatically rolls over. That's kind of how the alternates work essentially. But if someone were to term out and we still had an alternate, then they would not automatically go into that seat. Council would have to appoint them to that seat.
Yeah, so I'm just talking about for that meeting, so.
Yes, so they would automatically, once council has appointed them as an alternate, with that comes the responsibility of you attend the meetings and then you know that if someone is not there, you do step in and fill that seat.
Francis, I'm sorry, Larry, are you done?
Yeah, just one last question. Has these changes been reviewed by the attorney?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Francis.
I just want to clarify that that was a nice way of saying if one of us gets hit by a bus, somebody's filling in for us until someone else gets appointed.
Did we say that nicely enough?
That's what you're saying, right?
No.
Okay. I just want to make sure that's the whole purpose of
Well,
longer
and-
term than 1 meeting.
And truth be told, it takes a little bit of pressure. I get it, everyone has jobs and lives and families, and when you have just 5 and you don't have alternates, and we've got a major meeting where a decision is gonna be made, it becomes tense and stressful, and we're calling and scrambling, making sure we have at least 3. And so this will definitely take a little bit of that pressure off as well.
Okay, anybody else with comments, questions, concerns? So we need a motion to accept the,
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2023-07, amending the community redevelopment bylaws as presented with the slight adjustments we discussed.
so to say,
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
any other discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Yes, Ms. Christie Alphen,
Yes.
Mr. Barry Payton,
Yes.
Mr. Art Graham,
Yes,
Ms. Frances Pawlowski,
Yes.
Mr. David McDonald.
Yes.
by your action, you approve that resolution.
All right, and just again to remind you, November 20th, we've got that on council. And I didn't say this at the end of the last vote, I apologize, but November 6th, we tentatively have the sculpture on for council, so they will be looking at that November the 6th. And I gave you guys this written copy, but I will also email this out so everyone has the dates of upcoming important meetings.
So we have a regular meeting on November 15th.
Yes. So there were a lot of conflicts between holidays and scheduling and this room and trying to have a quorum. And so rather than doing a workshop and a regular meeting, the 15th was one of the few dates where we could have this room for our full 2 hours. And so that is the regular meeting date. And that will be the only meeting for the month of November.
And I would just like to confirm on record that I am out of town and I cannot be there on the 15th.
Okay, sorry, so that is all the new business?
Let me see. Yes, I did have a couple of things, if I may, Mr. Chairman. I know there wasn't a staff report, we've had a little bit of a crazy few weeks prepping for the FRA conference, all of these projects. We just had a lot going on. So excuse me, I will make sure we have a staff report for the 15th, but I did want to let you know, I actually talked to CXW today. They plan to have us the second phase of those documents for the passive park and sort of a fee and things associated with that by the end of this week. Staff met internally last week regarding the urban trails. The 60% drawings as of today are now complete. And so we have got a tentative open house scheduled for November 8th to have public comment and talk with the people and just kind of hear from the citizens regarding that. Again, that is a Parks and Recreation-led project, so we are kind of taking the back seat on that one. But we have a meeting Thursday internally to kind of talk about the details of what that meeting could potentially look like. So we will make sure to update you guys on that. We have a meeting next week. Heather hasn't even seen it on our calendar yet, sorry, with HAF to go over sort of the next steps and kind of what we're looking at in regards to the timeline on these Lakeland Plaza designs and where things stand, and then we can kind of give you guys a better idea of what we're looking at moving forward. They did also fill their job, previously was Dustin Felix was the landscape architect. They have filled that. His name is Max Span, so he'll be in on that meeting. And the Pier parking lot, if you've driven by, we've got signs up down there with a QR code that takes people to a section of the website that kind of explains that project and what's going on, so people don't just think we have a random chunk fenced off. So we're still working on getting through that and hope to bring you guys some numbers for approval. And then again, just these events coming up. The November 15th is our regular meeting. On December the 6th, there is a comp plan workshop for the boards, for city boards to attend. That'll be from 6 to 8. And then the council will review the comp plan on December the 11th, and then the 3 board vacancies will be appointed on the 18th of December, and as long as council approves our bylaws, so will 2 alternates. And that's all I got.
So tell us a little bit about the
Conference?
conference.
Well, we actually received a ton of really positive feedback on our mobile tour. People were really raving about that, so we were really, really pleased. You know, we really enjoyed showing them the work that we've done over the last few years, and I'm not surprised with our park in our downtown, but I was even kind of like, okay, this is I mean, people were really impressed. The public art session, I have since then, actually today, I've gotten 7 emails or phone calls from other communities, and we've kind of been brainstorming and working together on kind of what our plan looks like, what their plans look like, and I've actually talked to some folks that have, there's a Florida Association of Public Art Professionals, and they have an annual conference, and they do a big thing, and so I've been talking to some folks from that, and then we did a session on our CAPE program. That was another one that was very successful. I know Francis and Christy sat in on my art session, and Gary and Christy sat in on CAPE, so thank you guys for the support. And Gary, you were a great sport when I put you on the spot in the CAPE session, so thank you for playing along. They had to call on some people for a game, and I said, oh, right up front to my board member, call on him. And he was a great sport about it, so Gary, I appreciate it. But yeah, it was, you know, it's always a really good networking opportunity. It's always really good to see vendors and talk with other folks, and you know, really just kind of compare how we do things, how other communities are doing things, and this was the first year that we've really gotten to share some different methodology and different ways that we've created these new programs, and so that was a really good experience. And next year I've actually been approached about doing a session on the facade grant. So apparently we're going to do a session next year, and it is at the Marriott Water Street, Tampa next year. Yeah.
The dogs will never put me on their team, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was, Gary had to throw a football at a target in the middle of a session. It was good. He was a great sport about it. So, and then on Friday I did show up to the last session in a sparkly University of Georgia jersey on Georgia Florida weekend. I had to. But all in all, at 10 out of 10, it was a great conference.
That's good. All right, any other new business? Let's move on to the.
Oh wait, Dennis raised his hand. Mr.
Okay.
Barron?
Come on down.
Dennis Barron, Public Works Director. I wanted to provide you with a quick update. We were supposed to try to squeeze into this meeting to talk about reappropriating some additional funding for the dune walkovers. The bid was just opened on Wednesday of last week, and so because of timing, we didn't get it in front of you today. So, in working with staff internally because of the way the bid went down, and of course with timing, because non-turtle season starts in 2 days, we're gonna fast track this project to get that open in the contractor's lap to be able to begin. So at your next meeting in the 15th, there will be a resolution to basically award, to appropriate additional funding to cover the quote contingency costs on those walkovers. So there will be a total of 17. 11 of those will be inside the CRA. The way I've got the numbers figured out, I'll actually be at city council meeting on Monday of next week to award the contract and the continuing services, which will let us basically get the PO cut to get that project started. And then I'll bring it back to you on the 13th for approval of the reappropriation of basically just the contingency funds, which will be above and beyond the $1 million that was appropriated. And then the following city council meeting, I'll take it back to them to appropriate the funding for what you've already approved, as well as the alternates for those bids. So it's kind of a weird situation with the way it bid. We only had one bidder. They did not bid on the alternates, so we don't have a way to bid on the alternates, so we're going to award without the alternates, and then we're going to treat the alternates as a change order to that original bid, which is why I need to talk contingency, because then the contingency bumps up and now it's outside of budget, so I need you to reappropriate the funding. So it's a long story, but what you're going to see next month in front of you will be just an appropriation for the contingency amount, which will cover the alternates and then any additional contingencies for construction. But I wanted to at least get that in front of you, to at least so you know that it's coming and you're not wondering. The project is going to be awarded Monday. It won't be awarded with any of the contingencies or the alternates. So it'll just be the base bid for the construction of those 17. That lets the contractor get a purchase order in their hand and begin doing the work technically right away, even though we're waiting on final approval for additional funding. If there's any questions from that, I'll be more than happy to answer them if I can help you with that.
Well, just an FYI, you mentioned you're coming back before us on the 13th, which is a Monday. It's actually the 15th.
The 15th? Yes, I'll be here. Whatever day you're meeting, I'll be here.
Just want to make sure.
I mean, you can come on the 13th, but we won't be here.
Sure.
Anybody got any questions, Dennis?
Yeah, I have one quick question, Dennis.
Sure.
If you didn't get bids, how are you determining what the contingency need is that you have? You know, if you don't have a number for the alternates, how are you determining that, the amount of that contingency?
So because of our procurement process, they did not bid on the alternate amounts. However, FDEP, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, requires us to do some of those particular alternates. So to keep everything in line with how we need to do it for procurement policy, because they did bid on the base bid of the construction, we can award that. And then what we'll do is we'll work with the contractor. So reading between the lines, what that is we've already reached out to the contractor. We actually have an updated cost, but because it wasn't included in their original bid, the only way for us to move forward is to award it as they originally bid it, and then bring it back to you to reappropriate the dollars, and to city council to approve the additional work that's above and beyond the scope that they bid.
So you have a number from that contract? Okay.
I do. To be honest with you, I'm going to expect that I'm going to come back to you asking for under $200,000 of additional appropriations from the $1 million to do 17. But I couldn't get those dollar figures down to a number that I could get in front of you today because of the advertisement and getting in front of you. So the only way for us to move forward timely, because of the turtle season scenario, is to let council award it as it was bid, and then bring it back to you for appropriating that additional funding, which we won't need to do to get started, but that lets the contractor start ordering materials and getting things on the way, and then we're not holding up, quote, the construction of the project, waiting on the funding. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to get the green light to a contractor until after probably December 1st to even start, which means I've at least burnt one whole month of non-turtle season construction time that they could be working through the process. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dennis? Thank you. Okay, for side grant.
Okay, you were provided in your packet a facade grant application. Again, it's pretty
replacing some doors, the kind of large, massive garage doors. The location is 401 First Street North, better known as the Tavern and Rec Building. And Mr. Stephen Chelgren with Jack's Beach Bar Investments is the applicant. I am happy to answer any questions you may have about the application.
Francis?
My question is more around the funding of this, because when you look at I could be wrong, but I just want to verify. Ashley just gave us this whole breakdown, what we have left in the appropriation, and it's only $26,000, and they're requesting quite a bit more. Am I misunderstanding that?
Yes, this is budgeted for in FY '24, and we have $500,000 in the line item for incentives.
Okay, so this is starting that over. That was one, because I just noticed that it wasn't in this list, and then I just wasn't sure.
Yeah,
So that's my only question.
this is a budgeted for line item.
Thank you.
Gary?
Taylor, just to help me, how are we confirming, we get bids in with these applications? Are we requiring that these folks actually go to 3 different bidders when they pursue something?
We're not, but most of them provided at least evidence that they solicited 3, and then they usually just submit with the lowest bidder, which in this scenario is what we have. But it's not part of the requirement since technically they are a private entity.
I would think that that would be something that would be prudent for us to do, is to require 3 bids. We're required to do it for the work that we do, so I would think it would be appropriate to have, have applicants at least provide some indication that they've gone to 3 different bidders.
Yeah.
And the basic number.
And like I said, most of them usually do. It's just not always in the packet, because at this stage, it's usually not pertinent. But I think almost everyone we've had has at least shown proof that they've contacted and got numbers from 3 bidders, and they've submitted with the lowest bid possible. There's, it sometimes is hard because what you get in your packet sometimes is, I've been working with the applicant leading up to this, kind of walking them through the process. So it might be a little different than it seems sometimes.
It just may be an item that needs to be included in the submission requirements, that they just, 3 bids.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Chrissy?
I think that gets a little sticky if we have required 3 bids with, we don't necessarily want to take the lowest bid, or at least what are we saying to them? We need you to get 3 bids and we want you to take the lowest bid. That's not necessarily.
Yeah, before we put anything in there officially, I would, as always, defer back to legal, because when you're doing incentives and that in, but it's not the same as Dennis doing a project where, it's kind of like back, I don't know how many were around when we did like the grease trap incentives and we were giving money for that, we weren't requiring alternate quotes there. So it just gets into, that's a good point, a little bit of a gray area, but I'm more than happy to talk it over with legal and see what the best practice would be.
I don't know, I agree with Chrissy, I'm not sure if we want to start throwing obstacles out there, because, they may not be able to get 3 bids, and just because they put this up before us, we still have full control over what we want to approve and not approve. If something comes in, we can just say that's ridiculous and reject it.
100%.
So it still comes down to us. There's nothing legally pushing us to accept anything.
And it's written actually in part of the application that is at the discretion.
Microphone.
Sorry, I didn't want it to echo, sorry. It is written in as part of the agreement that it's at the discretion ultimately of the agency. So, you have that liberty legally to decline any applications you feel necessary.
Francis?
Well, can I respond to that?
Go ahead.
Just a quick comment. I would agree. I think, Taylor, you made a comment that, it would be good for legal to take a look at it. I would just, if they're comfortable with it, then fine.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Francis?
I was just going to echo Christy and Art about, it is private property. Not so they can't necessarily get the same products from multiple places or services from multiple places, and since they're not stuck on our requirements, I think, and we're only paying for half or reimbursing for half, I don't think
expect maintenance and stuff to go 5 years, and doors that are that heavily used are gonna get some serious wear and tear, and how are we as an agency gonna make sure that they maintain them to the level we want them to do in order to earn this awesome, share of those payments? So it's a concern.
Sure.
Put it up there.
And that's kind of one of those things where when we did this program, we kind of had to pick and choose our battles, if you will, and that's why we ultimately went with the reimbursable program. So, okay, you're not getting these funds until you've done the work. But as far as the maintenance, if they become a maintenance issue, at that point, it would have to be something that's violating code enforcement. Because once we've given them that grant money, we're not gonna essentially go and take it back because paint's chipping. That's just not in the agreement. We're not able to do that. So at that point, it would fall on code enforcement and good faith, if you will.
Francis?
And just to add, didn't we put a 5-year clause as well? To where that one
It
specific
was
for the
3 years and a maximum of the full grant amount over the course of that 3 years. So essentially, if they were to get whatever this is, 50,000, over the next 3 years, they're only eligible for whatever is left over at that specific address. We did put that clause in.
And then also not new.
Exactly. Yep, it has to be, what did we say, 5 years older, something like that.
We're still in the facade grant. Any comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the facade grant application for 401 First North for $43,200.22.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Ms. Christie Upland?
Yes.
Mr. Gary Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Art Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Frances Pawlowski?
Yes.
Mr. David McGraw?
Yep.
By your action, you have approved the facade grant as presented. Items for discussion.
I guess I could have saved all of my dates I threw at you until then, so my bad. But at this time, no, like I said, I will kind of follow up with you guys and send those dates digitally. I know sometimes we have a lot that we say in these meetings, so it's easy to forget. So I will send that to you guys tomorrow. And I will also keep you updated if you're unable to attend the council meetings. I will keep you updated on the decisions that happen there. But other than that, that is all we have.
Remind me again, what was the meeting you said it was on the 8th? November?
That's the urban trails, tentatively. We have a meeting Thursday to finalize details, but I will make sure to send that to you guys. That will be, are we holding that here at Parks, or we haven't even decided? I think we're doing it at Parks. No, we're not. We are doing it here because more of the first parts of that trail system are on the northern part of the city, so we're gonna have it here so it's closer for those people to come. I do know that, but we'll have more details after our internal meeting.
Francis?
As a citizen and not a board member, if I go to this, are we allowed to ask questions and will it include the Penman Streets? How they're
No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. It won't have anything to do with Pittman, I can tell you that.
But will they show where they're crossing on said future Penman
I doubt it.
stuff?
Not on this. These spurs do not go across Pittman, so.
I was just curious, thank you.
Hey, you're asking the good questions tonight.
That's all I had. Anybody else? Everybody's got this sheet. She said she's gonna be emailing it out as well.
Yep.
Christie?
Are you gonna be emailing out the time and all the details of the number, right?
Just for you, no, I'm just kidding, yeah, I will. I'll make sure, I know, like I said, and because all of our meetings are at different times. I mean, one of the workshops for the council is from 6 to 8, and then the next one's at like 5:30, so I'll make sure to include that, so everybody knows where we'll be.
Okay, if that's it, then we're adjourned. We'll see you
Thank you,
guys
everybody.
on the 15th.
Thank you.